My name's Kylie Orlobel. This is Choosing to Be Chosen, the podcast. I'm here today with Esther. How are you?
Hi, Kylie. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. We know each other from the community, and we're both moms, and kids went to the same school for a while. And I heard that you have an incredible story. So first of all, are you from South Africa?
I am from Cape Town, yes.
Nice. And what's that like?
Gorgeous. Mountains, beaches, forest. Beautiful.
I've heard it's like San Diego, kind of the similar trees.
Laguna Beach-ish, yeah. San Diego Laguna Beach, but more mountains next to the beach.
And what was your childhood like there?
I didn't grow up there. I actually grew up in a very small city called Pietermaritzburg, which is a different part of the country. And there were no Jewish people in that city that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm. What was it mostly?
Mostly just Christian, I think, and regular people.
Mm-hmm. And what did your parents do for work?
My dad was a lawyer and my mom was a nurse.
Mm-hmm. Did you like growing up there?
Yeah, it was a small city, nice, fun. Used to cycle to school, walk to school, safe, friendly.
Did you eat a lot of boerewors?
Of course, yes.
What's the other one? What's the maize, the corn maize with the red sauce?
A pop?
Mealie pop.
Mealie pop?
Yeah. My husband went to South Africa for a month and he's like, you have to make mealie pop, boerewors, biltong.
Biltong is the best. You can get it in OC. They have a really nice kosher butcher in
OC kosher. It's my favorite. I love it there. I go get the frozen meals.
Good frozen meals too.
Amazing food. So you were growing up in this town, and describe your life there. Like, you went to school, you had bike, you had friends.
Yeah, I was very active. I played a lot of sports. As a child, I did gymnastics, diving, swimming, just very busy and a quiet residential neighborhood. And then I went to university in the town as well. I did some studying there. And then I moved to Cape Town to study further, to do my master's degree. And yeah, that's when I really loved Cape Town.
And were your parents Christian?
My dad was an atheist, or agnostic, would say. He didn't really know what to believe or didn't really believe anything, but he was a very moral, ethical man. And my mom was a very strong Christian, yes, and my sister also. So I kind of went to church and youth group on Fridays, and I was pretty involved in the church for most of my life until I decided to become Jewish.
And what kind of church was it?
I started in the Anglican church, and then later on in life, I became kind of more of an evangelical Christian.
Mm-hmm. And they're very pro-Israel.
That's right.
And what is Anglican like?
It's kind of, it has a liturgy, it has a prayer book, and it's kind of in between the evangelical church and Catholic. It's not as many traditions as Catholic. They don't have saints, they don't have statues, but they do have a formal prayer service.
And you go to church every Sunday?
Oh, yeah, I was very involved.
Is there a youth group at church, or do you have to just sit there with your parents?
Oh, Friday night was fun. We used to hang out and as kids and teenagers and play games and do stuff. There are lots of youth activities. I went to camps. I went away for camps, like in the mountains. We'd go tubing down the river. We did a lot of fun stuff.
Very outdoorsy in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And was it always a good temperature like it is here in LA?
No, not always. Winters, especially in Cape Town, can be very rainy, kind of like London. But in the summer, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And were you a very strong believer?
I was, yes. When I was 16, I really kind of committed my life to Jesus and the church. And I was a strong born-again believer.
Is that what? Okay, you'll have to explain this to me. So, like, Catholics take communion and Jews have bar and bat mitzvah. So, does something happen at 16 in the Anglican church?
Well, not so much. I think by then maybe I was heading to. Oh, actually, you're right. Confirmation, right? Mm-hmm. I did have a confirmation. It's kind of like I think that Catholics also have that. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. But at some point, I also did the whole water baptism thing as a sign of my commitment.
So you don't do that when you're born?
You can have a little sprinkle on you as a baby when you're born, but you can have a full baptism under the water when you fully commit your life to serving God.
Nice. And so you went through that in like a natural body of water?
Kind of like an indoor swimming pool, not like a mikveh.
Mm-hmm.
not at all like the mikveh.
So what's the ceremony like?
I don't really remember so well. I think you just, they just call you up, or whoever's going up, and you affirm your commitment, and then you go under, and then you come up, and it's supposed to be a cleansing of your sins, is what it represents.
And what did you really like about your religion? What did you really connect to?
I think Christianity always taught me to talk to God and to have a close relationship with Him, and to know that He loved me. He was interested in my life. He was there for me. He was my protector, my provider. I loved reading the Bible, especially the Old Testament. What Christians call the Old Testament is the Tanakh in Judaism. All the stories about the prophets, all the Psalms, just all the stories, beautiful stories about our connection to God. And so I think that Christianity gave me a good solid foundation to believe in God, and know that He was real, and He was around, and He was active in my life.
And in your religion, do you pray to Jesus? Do you pray to God? Are they the same thing? Because I know there's differences between Christianity.
Right. So that was kind of the confusing part, because Jesus says, pray to our Father in heaven, but Christians mostly, you could pray to either. I think that for Christians, Jesus is the Son of God, or equal to God, depending on who you kind of talk to. They basically say that He is God in the flesh, is the general Christian belief, God in human form. So you could pray to whoever you wanted to. And definitely when it comes to Christianity, people believe that you need to ask Jesus for forgiveness for your sins, because He is the one that died on the cross, and He is the one who is the sacrifice, kind of like how we had sacrifices in the temple. They think that He is the mediator, the means to which we get forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. And how did you envision God?
Wow. So when you're a Christian, I think you do think of Jesus a lot, or kind of more in a human form, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I was little, I just, the guy in the sky with the white beard and,
Mm-hmm. No white beard, but I definitely didn't think of Him as kind of like nothing, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think, on the topic of believing in like a person or a human, or just like this abstract concept of God, is that unless you have the Jewish faith, or maybe you grew up Muslim in a monotheistic faith, it's very hard to envision God without some kind of something, which is why I think that most of the religions, like, or Buddhism or Christianity, or they all have some kind of intermediary, many of them, because as humans, it's hard for us to feel connected to something so abstract.
Absolutely. I think so too. So going back, you converted at first from Anglican to evangelical?
Not really a conversion, more of like just a move.
Mm-hmm. And what did that look like?
Fun Sundays in church with a band, great music, happy clappy, full of life.
Yeah. And was it like a mega church?
Yeah, I actually did go to Hillsong, which has one of the best music bands in the world. So it was a lot of fun.
Is that the Justin Bieber church?
I'm not sure.
In LA?
Probably.
Yeah. I know that was like a big deal for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What did you like about it? I mean, was it very soulful?
Definitely. Nice community, nice people. And the music was great. So you really could feel like you were, kind of getting lost in worshiping God.
Mm-hmm. And what did community look like in that community? Because like I came into Judaism with no community, just like very alone in the world, parents divorced. And then I only know Orthodox community, which is like, whoa, it's amazing. So evangelicals, what's that look like?
So I think a lot of churches have something called home group or cell group, especially when you're in such a big church and you have like 1,000 or more people when you're going to church on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. So it can be quite overwhelming. And they split you up into these small little groups that meet in a house once a week or so, like on a Thursday night, and study the Bible together and pray together. And you have like a cell group leader, someone who will take care of you, make sure you make friends or integrated into the church. They have social projects as well, stuff that the church does, like outreach to other people, or soup kitchen or stuff like that.
Did they have a good kiddush?
Just tea after
Really?
church. Nothing serious. No, not
Even in LA, just tea?
not. I don't know in LA. I never went to church here, but
Okay.
it's not. It's definitely not like the Jews eat, pray, eat, pray, eat.
Yeah. So where'd you go to that church in South Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's why you had tea. It's very British.
tea,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I always wonder like if they have a good cholent,
No,
No.
not nearly close to the amount of food. They don't eat together as much as you know. I think some Christians on Sundays, a lot of them Sunday used to kind of be more like the Shabbat, so they would go to their families, especially in the maybe like 2 generations ago, go to the grandparents for like a big roast on Sunday lunch and after church and dress up formally for church, and that's kind of the closest that they have to what we have in Judaism.
Yeah, I see a lot of Christians, like if I'm out at a restaurant on a Sunday or I'm at the mall, like they'll be dressed up and they'll be going out too. So maybe they're doing the restaurant. I don't know. So you are 16, you convert, or you just become evangelical, and then what?
So, like I told you, I always, used to pray and talk to God and ask for guidance in my life. And when I was 18 years old, I was really praying about what to do next in my life. Whether I was actually did kind of a year of your life thing that you give to the church, where I went and to schools and did community projects. And during that year, I was praying about what to do next, what I should study, what I should do really for direction in my life. And I had a very significant dream that was not like any dream that I've ever had before. Sometimes when you wake up from a dream, you remember vague details or it's a bit fuzzy. This dream was crystal clear, and I can remember it exactly today as it was back then, like a movie. And I woke up and I really had this strong feeling of peace, and I knew that it was a very special dream that probably was from God. And so what I dreamt about was, it was in Israel. In my dream, I knew that I was in Israel, and I was watching people very old-fashioned, old torn clothing, kind of like a black and white picture, coming into what I knew was Israel with suitcases. They really didn't have very much. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, walking in this kind of desert path. There was really nothing. And then suddenly the path, next to the path was a small stream of water, which got bigger. And from the stream of water, everything started to become green, and there became plants. And as the people were walking, when they came in, they were quite sad. And the story got happier, and the people were, there started to be buildings, and things were flourishing, and they were happy. And I didn't really understand the dream because I didn't really know that much about Israel as a Christian. So I kind of wasn't even aware of the fact that, the Jews had been in exile for 2,000 years. So I kind of just thought, I read my Bible, Israel's there, Israel's always been there. But, obviously the Jews were not there for a long period of time. And then the next day I was praying, and I understood that my life's purpose has something to do with Israel, for sure. I don't know what, but has something to do with Israel. So I was praying to God for more guidance. And like a good Christian, decided to just pray and open my Bible, like Bible relates. Okay, speak to me, God. And I happened to open up to Isaiah 35, which talks about the Jewish people coming back into Israel from exile. And it says that God says, I will bring my people back by streams of water. The desert will become green. There will be no more sorrow or sadness. My people will be happy. There will be no more sick people. It's kind of a story. Eventually, many years later, I saw a picture on the back of the book called The Exodus, which has a picture of the people coming into Israel from the Holocaust. And I realized that those were the people that I saw in my dream, literally coming into Israel from the Holocaust. And that was when Israel was reborn as a nation. And so kind of my dream was the story of, the Jews coming back into Israel. And I believe going towards the end of the time when we'll see Moshiach, we'll see the Messiah, and everything will be happy, and there'll be no more sickness or fighting or anything like that.
That's amazing that you had the dream the next day. You opened the prayer book and it was there.
I think, because I had no connection to literally no connection to Jewish people. I'd never met a Jew in my life. I think that I was really searching for the truth, and God had to, he had to speak to me somehow. So that was the way that he could do it.
I was talking with another guest on the show about past lives.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in that?
I didn't used to as a Christian, but I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. When I went to the Holocaust Museum as a kid, it just deeply affected me. And for years I had nightmares about it. And I've heard that from a lot of other converts. It's just like, whoa. And then I took a DNA test, 0.08% Ashkenazi Jewish from Germany.
Wow.
So I was like, I don't know. But, so you had this dream. Did you book your flight the next day? Like, how did you?
No, I didn't really know, what, and I just kept kind of praying about it. I went to study, continued with my life, was involved in the church. And then I think as a Christian, I thought that my life's purpose was to bring Jews to Christianity or to believe in Jesus, because obviously I was a Christian and I thought that was the right thing to do and the right way. So that's kind of how I understood my mission, like my life's purpose. And then I was, kept praying about it for more years, and I had another significant dream about a place in Israel called Jaffa Gate. People who've been there will know that this place exists. And I'd never been to Jerusalem when I had this dream. And again, it was just God showing me exactly where I needed to be and what I needed to do. So in my dream, I saw this stone building church with a big black iron gate. And I literally not heard a voice, but in my head, I just heard God saying to me, this is Jaffa Gate in Jerusalem. This is where you're going to be in a few years' time, 2 to 3 years' time. And this church has connections to Christ Church in Cape Town. Now, I knew there was a church called Christ Church, and it was an Anglican church, but I wasn't going there. So I called the priest and I said, can I please speak to the priest? And I said, okay, sure. And I said, hi, my name is Donna. It was Donna back then. You're going to think that I'm absolutely crazy, but I had this dream. It's a lot more acceptable in the church to believe that, God is talking to you, or they believe in prophecy, and not quite as strange as people would find it in Judaism. So I told the priest, and he was like, yeah, whatever. And then he was like, okay, that is our sister church in Jerusalem. So you better come and see me. So off I went to go and see him and meet him in person. And he said, well, you must have a calling to be there. And that's where we do our missionary work from. So I did end up going there a couple of years later. I lived in the old city of Jerusalem, 5 minutes walk from the Kotel, opposite the city of David. It's right next to the post office. What an amazing place to live. And I did try very hard to convert Jewish people.
What did that look like?
I didn't get very far.
We have tea. They're like,
Well, what did that look like? I don't know. Just try to have conversations with Jewish people about what they believed, and, ask them why they don't believe in Jesus, and try to explain to them from the Bible, certain things like, well, don't you read the messianic prophecies in Isaiah and this and this and this? It's all pointing to Jesus. And before this, when I was in Cape Town, I felt that I should get to know a little bit more about Judaism and Jewish people if this is my calling in life. So one day I just arrived at synagogue without knowing anything about it. I just found one and went, and I loved it. I went in Cape Town first.
Okay.
And I loved it, and I really enjoyed it. And everybody there was saying to me, "You're going to convert. You're going to convert." I said, "No, I'm going to convert you. It's not going to go this way around."
Conversion wars.
Because just before me, they had a Christian who had converted, so they were familiar with the whole concept. And I guess they saw it happening, but I didn't. So it so happened by Hashgacha Pratit, which is divine providence, if you're not Jewish, that Hashem, God, sent one of the people from my synagogue from Cape Town, that was many years before, to be in Israel studying at the same time as I was in Israel. And he was also living in the old city, and we were good friends. And so he introduced me to all his Orthodox friends, which I thought was great. I'm going to convert them.
That's the real winner. Like, go to Mea Shurim, and now they're all evangelical.
And then he introduced me to a friend who was a rabbi, and the rabbi would sit down with me and say, "Why do you believe in this?" And I was like, "Why don't you believe?" And we would sit and we would have discussions, and we would go through, literally open the Bible together, and he would say to me, "Well, you're reading it in English and it's not the same in Hebrew." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he would sit down and explain to me verse by verse. For example, in Psalm 22, if you're a Christian and you open Psalm 22, you think it says, "And they pierced my my hands and feet," or his hands and feet, which sounds exactly like the crucifixion. Like, why don't the Jews believe this? But he explained to me that the words are, I think in Hebrew, "Sovivenu kmo ari," that's talking about King David. They surrounded his hands and feet, raglayim, kmo ari, like a lion. And there's no word for pierced in there at all. It's a complete mistranslation. So slowly but surely, I started to question and, wanted to really know what the truth was. And I understood that the only way for me to find that out was to really read the Bible or Torah in Hebrew.
And going back, when you were trying to get people to convert, would you just stand there? Did you have a sign? Like, what did that look like?
I'm very embarrassed to say that once upon a time, before I was in Israel, I actually was organizing a Jews for Jesus mission in Cape Town. And they gave me this t-shirt that said, "JC, Jesus made me kosher." And I just did not feel comfortable. And I was standing on the street handing out pamphlets. And I was so scared that I was going to bump into people from my synagogue from years before and they were going to hate me. So yeah, that was, I literally did do that, but that wasn't really the way that I guess I did my outreach in Israel. It was more like just through relationships and through friends. And, Israelis especially are very tough and they just shut me down right away.
They're just like, no, bye-bye.
Like, stop the shtuyot, stop the nonsense.
Were they overall nice to you?
Yeah, I made good friends. I had a wonderful time.
Because there's this blood libel that goes around, especially on X, Twitter, that like we're always like spitting on Christians in Israel and we hate the Christians in Israel. It's like, it's actually the exact opposite. That's like the only place in the Middle East you can be Christian and be fine.
There are obviously a few crazy radicals in Israel, like there are in every country, but no, overall, people were in any Jewish community I ever went to, when I was at synagogue or when I was living in Israel, people were overwhelmingly accepting of me and very friendly and warm. Israelis are incredibly warm and hospitable. They love hospitality, and they are very accepting. Jews are very accepting of other faiths because they don't have the viewpoint of Christians that everybody's going to hell. So they don't do outreach. They believe that, Judaism is for Jews. And if you want to be a Christian, that's great. And if you want to be a Buddhist, that's great. And if you want to be a Muslim, that's great. They're not out there trying to convert anybody or disparage anybody.
Yeah, that's what I love. We have the 7 Noahide laws, which is just basic human decency. Don't rip a limb off a live animal, for instance. And that's
Don't commit adultery. Don't murder. The usual ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty no-brainer. Okay, so at what point did you decide to convert?
Right. So I lived in Israel when I was 28, 29, something like that, for a year. I went to synagogue when I was 25. That was when my journey really kind of started. And it took me 10 years back and forth. To be honest, it was quite confusing for me, because like at one point I was church on Sunday and synagogue on Shabbat. And I thought that Messianic Judaism was the answer to everything. I thought, this is the way. I'm going to combine my Christianity and combine the Judaism. And this is the way. It's Jesus and Judaism. It's perfect. Until I met, and I really don't mean to disparage any Jewish people or Jewish believers in Jesus, but until I met my first Jews on the Jews for Jesus mission, I was so excited to meet them. And there they were eating the ham sandwich. And I was like, hold on a minute. I'd already been to synagogue and met Orthodox Jews. I was like, I don't understand. You're Jewish. Why have you given up everything Jewish about yourself? You've actually become a Christian. I don't see any connection to Judaism. And that was quite disappointing for me. And on my own, I started to research the Jewish holidays like Passover and Rosh Hashanah. And I just started to do it by myself until eventually I kind of found my way back. I had one friend who's a very good friend still in South Africa, amazing family. And he always said to me, you're going to become a Jew. You're going to become a Jew. You're going to become a Jew. And his family always invited me for Shabbat. And eventually I got to the point where I just realized that I really loved Judaism. And I had my questions answered about why Jesus wasn't the Jewish Messiah or why I shouldn't believe in him and I should just believe in God. I'd more or less answered those questions. So when I understood that actually I was practicing, I think, idolatry by praying to or believing in someone that wasn't God. And I know that's offensive to Christians. And so I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to I'm going to leave the idolatry part. I'm going to leave Jesus alone. And I do think that Christianity brought me to Judaism. And I do still, have respect for, if you read in the New Testament, Jesus says you should follow the commandments and you should follow the law. And I think that it wasn't Jesus who changed Christianity so much as it was Paul who changed afterwards and said that, we should not keep the law and the Torah. So I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to become, like you said, a Noahide, just like a believer in God? But there's no community really for Noahides. And I've heard there are, but I didn't know any. Or am I going to go all the way and become a Jew? And back to my friend and, the holidays always felt so special when I was doing the Jewish holidays and the Shabbat. And I felt, I'm so tired of being on the outside of this. I want this to be, and I'm tired of going to Jewish people's houses for their Shabbat, their holiday. I want it to be my holiday. I want it to be my religion, my faith. And so I actually flew to Israel to make sure that I was making the right decision. And I stood at the Kotel, the Western Wall, above, and I was just looking at it. And I really just felt so connected as I did when I was in Israel. It's so connected to God and so connected to Judaism. And I felt like Ruth, the words of Ruth, this really is my God, this is my people, and this is my land, and this is where I belong. And then I made the decision to start the conversion, and I went to the rabbi, and I said, well, here is a crazy ex-missionary, here I am. Do you want to accept me? And I started the conversion, which took me almost 2 years.
Was that in South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did your conversion look like? Did you have to go to classes and things like that?
Yeah, weekly classes at least, lots and lots of reading books. You have to read a lot and learn a lot when you become a convert, a lot about Jewish history, Jewish ethics, Jewish way of life, kosher, keeping Shabbat, all the holidays, and of course, many, many, many Jewish halachot, which are Jewish laws for way of life.
What part did you like about it the best?
That's hard to say. I think everything in the Torah is fascinating. Just learning.
You're very into the script. I can tell. Like, I don't know if Jews do this, but Christians always memorize like whatever it is, 23, like you said. I don't know if we also do that, but I can tell you're very into reading and learning and
I think the biggest difference between the way Christians learn and the way Jews learn is with Christianity, they'll take a random verse from one place or a random verse from another place to support whatever, they want to say. And Judaism is much more methodical. Like they'll look at the verse in the context that it's in, cannot just take one verse out of somewhere and say it. So, and then of course, Judaism has thousands of years of commentary on everything. Every single verse.
Yeah. When you read, I always wonder when you read the New Testament or the Old Testament as a Christian, do you read the insights? Because like we have at least Rashi and then we have tons of other commentators. Are there commentators on it?
It's not formalized like Judaism. There are devotionals, there are books that are written by people, but it's really not nearly as in depth as even the little commentary that you'll find in the average, Jewish Chumash or Tanakh book.
Yeah, I think that's what took me away from it, because I just learned about Noah's Ark and like just all these crazy stories, and God seems so angry, and then with Judaism you actually learn what they're saying, and it's not like that.
I'm very grateful for the knowledge that I got from reading the Bible in English, because you really are familiar with all of the stories. You know, David and Goliath, David and Saul, Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu, you know, all those amazing stories. So I think they give me like a good literacy, a good like base. But if you really want to go deeper and you really want to understand the Torah or the Bible, the only way is to learn Hebrew and to read the commentaries, the Jewish commentaries.
What did your parents think when you told them?
So my mom actually passed away a few years before I became Jewish. And I think that it was her passing away that made me feel free to follow my own path. Because I think she would have been pretty upset if, you know, now I know she's in heaven, she's smiling at me. And my dad was, like I said, a hardcore atheist, but very much into ethics, which is very similar, you know, to Judaism, also a lawyer. So I think he understood that a little bit about Judaism. He actually came to synagogue with me, put a little kippah on his head and everything. He's very dark, so you wouldn't know he wasn't even Jewish. People didn't even know he wasn't Jewish. And he was very supportive. He said, I think you've always been more connected to this than you have to Christianity. He said, I think it suits you better.
What is their background? Were they English?
My mom was from Holland. Traced her back to Holland. And my dad's family back to Austria or Germany. There are stories that we might have had some Jewish something, but I looked as much as I could in the genealogy and I couldn't find anything. My sister, who I'm still in very close contact with today, she lives in Australia, is still a born-again Christian, and her kids go to, you know, Christian school. And they recently came and met my kids, which was so special. I had a great time. And at first she was quite upset with me and angry with me, as were a lot of my Christian friends, that I lost a lot, if not most of my Christian friends, which I can understand. And she was like, I don't understand, why did you give up on Jesus? And I was like, well, it's so hard to explain a 10-year journey to someone who believes strongly what they believe. And you know that they're not going to read in Hebrew, and they're not going to go through all those points. They're just not going to understand. And I also didn't want to destroy her faith, because it's her faith. My father was there, and he just said, we're not fighting about religion. This is the end of the discussion.
It's a feeling. So much of it is a feeling. It's hard to describe.
And it became a family joke. We have one atheist, one Christian, and one Jew in the family.
They walk into a bar.
So it's good to laugh about the differences and just accept, you know, I accept her the way she is in her faith, and she accepts me. And yeah.
And why did you choose the name Esther?
Okay. So actually I had two names, Esther, Michal. Esther, I always felt connected to the story of Queen Esther, and you know, how incredible she was, like how much she sacrificed in her life and what she did for the Jewish people to save them, how close she was to God, how she fasted and prayed, and the power that she had, really, I think, within herself. But the quality that impressed me the most about Esther was that she knew exactly what to say and when to say, and when to approach the king, when not to approach the king, how she devised the whole, you know, how she handled the whole situation with Haman. And in Judaism, when you convert, you learn that a Jewish woman's quality is modesty, knowing when to speak and when not to speak, and not just, you know, being out there with everything. So I thought that was beautiful about Esther and the Jewish woman. And then my second name, Michal, comes from King David's wife. And the name Michal is also connected to, I think in Hebrew, Mikamocha, Elohim, who is like God, which I thought is beautiful. And my father's name was Michael, so I thought, okay, why not?
Is he still with us?
No, he passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
Was he still in South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go back and visit?
I did. Yeah. I did see him.
And go to your synagogue?
No, because he lived in a different city. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I haven't been actually back to South Africa. I haven't been to my synagogue maybe since my conversion. Wow, I need to go back, definitely.
Since your mom was from Holland, do you keep 1 hour with eating.
Well, I wish. Through South Africa is 3 hours with milk and meat.
Yeah.
I wish, but no. Now that I'm here,
Do you have an inspiring message for our listeners?
who are our listeners?
I don't know. We'll see.
Are they Jews? Are they Christians? Are they
Probably
regular
everyone.
people?
Yeah.
My inspiring message is Judaism is not for everybody to become a Jew. If you are thinking about becoming Jewish and you want to be a convert, research it, go for it, research it. Know it's going to be a long and challenging journey with a lot of tests. It's definitely worthwhile. But there's so much in Judaism for people of all religions to connect to and to learn from. Judaism really is the truth, and there's so much richness in Judaism and the Torah. If you can, try to learn from rabbis or listen to what we call shiurim. There are shiurim or like lectures. So many amazing websites like Torah Anytime or Meaningful Minute, or Yoel Gold has something called Stories to Inspire, which is really beautiful. There are so many incredible Jewish resources which would just help everyone to get closer to God and to become a better person in this world and live a better life.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much, Esther.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kylie.
Awesome.